The first laugh came before I even sat down. Soft, dismissive, just loud enough for me to hear it. Just quiet enough for them to pretend it wasn't about me. I paused for half a second beside the table, taking in the scene. Expensive restaurant. Dim lighting, crystal glasses. It's a kind of place where everything feels polished, perfect, and carefully judged. Wow, Daniel said, leaning back in his chair, looking me up and down. You actually showed up like that? A few people at the table chuckled, not openly, not aggressively, just enough. Enough to make it clear where I stood. I glanced down at my clothes. Simple, clean, nothing flashy, nothing designed to impress, and apparently that was the problem. It's dinner, I said calmly, not a fashion show. That got a slightly louder laugh, because in their world, everything was a performance, and I wasn't playing along. My father shook his head slightly, disappointment written all over his face. You could have at least made an effort, he said.
Effort?
I almost smiled, because they had no idea what effort actually looked like. I'm here, I replied. That's the effort, Daniel smirked. Bare minimum, as usual. There it was. The label, the role they had already assigned me. And tonight, they were making sure it stayed that way. I pulled out the chair and sat down, no hesitation, no reaction. Because walking away now would have been exactly what they expected, and I wasn't here to meet expectations. The waiter approached, polite and professional, handing out menus. I took one, opened it, looked through it slowly, not because I needed time, because I wasn't rushing for anyone. Around me, conversations picked up again. I could feel it, the subtle glances, the quiet comments, the judgment. You still working that? Whatever it is you do? One of my cousins asked. I didn't look up yes. It doesn't answer anything, Daniel added. I turned a page in the menu. It answers enough. Another laugh. Because to them, if they didn't understand it, it didn't matter. And if it didn't matter, neither did I. My father leaned forward slightly. People here have real careers, he said, real responsibilities. I looked up at him, calm, steady. So do I, he shook his head. No, he said, you don't. Silence. Not loud but sharp. Because that wasn't a joke. That was belief. And it had been for a long time. I closed the menu gently, set it down on the table, and for a moment, I just looked at all of them, met the people who had already decided who I was, what I was worth, and what I wasn't. Then I reached for my glass, took a small sip, and said nothing. Because sometimes the loudest thing you can do is wait. And they had no idea what was coming next. The conversation moved on. At least, that's how it looked. On the surface, people ordered drinks, laughed, talked about business, travel, investments, all the things they believed mattered. But every few minutes it circled back to me, not directly, never directly, just enough to keep the tone. Remember when he said he was starting that project? Daniel said, smirking as he leaned back. A few people chuckled. Yeah, my cousin added. What was it? Some app or something? Something like that, Daniel replied, still waiting for it to exist. Laughter, louder this time, more comfortable, because now it felt safe. Expected. I didn't respond. I just sat there, listening, watching, because every word they said was building something. They just didn't realize what. The waiter returned, taking orders one by one: steaks, seafood, wine bottles that cost more than most people's monthly rent. When he got to me, he paused slightly. Sir, I glanced at the menu again, then back at him. I'll take the same as everyone else, I said. Daniel laughed under his breath. Of course you will. I ignored him. The waiter nodded and moved on. Simple, normal. But nothing about this night was normal, not really. As the food arrived, the atmosphere shifted, slightly more relaxed, more confident, because now they were in their element. Talking louder, joking more, enjoying the moment. And then the bill came up. Not the actual bill, just the idea of it. Let's see who's paying tonight, my cousin joked. Daniel smirked. Definitely not him, he said, nodding toward me. More laughter, because in their minds, that wasn't even a question. My father didn't laugh this time, but he didn't stop it either, which meant the same thing. I picked up my fork, took another bite, unbothered. Because they thought this was about money. It wasn't. It was about perception, and perception was about to change. "You good?" Daniel asked suddenly. I looked up. "What? You've been quiet?" he said. "Not used to that." "I'm listening," I replied. He leaned forward slightly. "Learning something?" I held his gaze. "Yeah," I said. A pause. "Then I am." That threw him off, just a little, but enough, because now the rhythm was shifting. My father cleared his throat slightly. "You know," he said, "this is what happens when you don't take life seriously." There it was. The final push, the conclusion they had already written. I set my fork down, not loud, not aggressive, just done. "With respect," I said calmly, "you don't know anything about my life?" Oh. Silence. Immediate. Because that wasn't part of the script. Daniel laughed again, but this time it sounded forced. "Okay," he said. "Then tell us I didn't because I didn't need to." Instead, I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and placed it on the table face down right in front of me. A small movement, but intentional. Because this wasn't about proving anything with words. It was about timing, and timing was almost perfect. Across the table, Daniel watched me, trying to read something, anything. But there was nothing to read. Not yet. "Relax," he said finally. "We're just messing with you." I nodded slightly. "I know." And that was the truth. They were. But they didn't understand something. Sometimes the people who laugh the loudest are the least prepared for what happens next. The plates were cleared slowly, one by one. Conversations softened, drinks were refilled, and just like that, the night reached the moment they had all been waiting for, the bill. The waiter approached carefully, holding the black folder with both hands. Professional, neutral, uninvolved. "Whenever you're ready," he said politely, placing it at the center of the table. No one touched it, not immediately, because this wasn't just a payment. It was a statement, a quiet contest, confirmation of who held control. Daniel leaned back in his chair, glancing around the table with a small smile. "Well," he said casually, "who's got it?" Few people chuckled, not serious, but not entirely joking either. My father reached slightly toward the folder, then stopped, like he was expecting someone else to step in first, like he didn't want to be the obvious answer. Because in rooms like this, even generosity is strategic. "Come on," my cousin added. "Don't all jump at once. More laughter. Light, comfortable, predictable. Exactly how they liked it." I didn't move. Not yet. I just sat there, watching, waiting, because this was the moment. And moments like this, it's only happened once. Daniel glanced at me briefly, then smirked. "Don't worry," he said. "We're not expecting you to contribute." That got another round of laughter. Louder this time. More confident. Because now, it felt like the final punchline. The end of the joke. I reached forward, slowly, deliberately, and placed my hand on the folder. The laughter stopped, not instantly, but enough. Enough to shift attention. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Relax," he said. "You don't have to pretend." I didn't respond. I just opened the folder, looked inside, took a second, then closed it again. Calm. Unshaken. "I've got it," I said. Silence. Complete. Because those 3 words didn't fit. Not in their version of the story. Daniel blinked, then laughed again sharp. "No, seriously," he said. "Put it down." I held his gaze. "I am serious." That changed everything. Not loudly, but enough. My father frowned slightly. "This isn't necessary," he said. "I know," I replied. A pause. "Then I'm still doing it." That's when the air shifted, because now it wasn't a joke anymore. It wasn't mockery. It was something else, something they didn't understand yet. The waiter stepped forward slightly. "Sir," he asked. I handed him my card. Simple, direct, no hesitation. He took it, nodded, and walked away. The table stayed quiet. No one spoke. No one laughed. Because now it was nothing to laugh at. Daniel leaned forward slightly. "What are you doing?" he asked. I looked at him, calm, measured. "Exactly what you said I couldn't." That landed hard, because it wasn't loud. It wasn't emotional. It was true. And truth hits differently. The waiter returned a minute later, receipt in hand, card placed neatly on top. "Thank you, sir," he said. "Sir." That word echoed louder than anything else that night, because suddenly everything felt different. Daniel looked at the receipt, then at me, then back at the receipt again, like he was trying to understand something that didn't make sense. And that's when I stood up. For a moment, no one moved. Not Daniel, not my father, not even the people who had been laughing just minutes ago, because the shift didn't happen all at once. It settled slow, heavy, unavoidable. I stood there beside the table, my chair still slightly pushed back behind me. The receipt rested where the bill had been. Paid. Finished. Final. Daniel reached for it first. His eyes scanned the number, then scanned it again. Slower this time. Like it would change if he looked long enough. It didn't. "What is this?" he asked quietly. Not loud. It's not mocking. Just confused. I didn't answer because I didn't need to. The answer was right in front of him. My father leaned in slightly, glancing at the receipt. His expression shifted, not dramatically, but enough. Enough to break something. "This doesn't make sense," he said. That sentence said everything. Because for the first time, their version of me didn't match reality, and they didn't know how to fix it. Daniel looked up at me. Different now, not confident, not amused. "What do you do?" he asked. The question was simple, but it carried weight, because it wasn't curiosity. It was realization. I held his gaze for a second, then shook my head slightly. "It wouldn't make sense," I said. That landed harder than any explanation could have, because now they understood something. They didn't know me, not even close. My father leaned back in his chair slowly, like the room had changed around him. "You could have said something," he muttered. I almost smiled. Almost. When? An answer. Because there wasn't one. Every time I could have said something, they were already talking, already deciding, already laughing. Daniel looked down at the table again, at the empty plates, the glasses, the receipt, then back at me. "This whole time," he said, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Because now he saw it, the gap, the difference, the truth. I picked up my jacket, slid it on slow, unrushed. Because there was nothing left to prove. Nothing left to say. "I should go," I said. No one stopped me. No one argued, because they didn't know how. Not anymore. As I turned toward the exit, I could feel it, the shift behind me, the silence, the weight of everything they had said now, sitting differently, heavier, real. I reached the door, pushed it open. The night air hit differently, cool, clear, quiet, and for a moment I just stood there. Not because I needed to, because I could. Because for the first time that night, there was no pressure, no expectations, no noise, just space. Behind me, the door stayed closed. No one followed. No one called out. Because the moment had already passed. The story they thought they were telling had already ended. And as I walked away, there was no anger, no need for revenge, just one simple truth. They laughed when I walked in and stayed silent. When I walked out,